We've got a quorum, so we'll go right away to law and licensing. And Chair Hymas, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Hart. Board members will notice that there's, and I apologize for this, as Chair of the Law and Licensing Committee, there's a few items on here that there's no motion for the board. And so we're going to kind of jump through agenda items here, and we're going to start with agenda item 3.3. This is R277-113, LEA Fiscal and Auditing Policies. Now, the motion for the board is that the committee recommends that the board approve R277-113, LEA Fiscal and Auditing Policies, Draft 2 on second and final reading. However, if I could jump in and continue on, this rule is on the agenda for the Law and Licensing Committee with a Draft 3 scheduled for tomorrow. So for the sake of time and efficiency, I'd like to move that we send this back to committee so that we can proceed with the work that's already scheduled.
I second that.
Okay, there's a second. Okay, so the motion is to defer action on 113 to committee tomorrow. It's noticed and ready for tomorrow. Any discussion on that motion? Member Lear, sorry.
You just say 123 instead of 113. 113. Or do you mean 113?
Yeah, 123 was teed up with no motion for the board.
Okay.
113
Oh, so he
was
moved
noticed,
To
but
113.
correct.
Okay. That, never mind. My question is about 123, and I'll take care of it later. Thank you.
Got it. Okay. So I think the effect of the motion would be that both of these are considered in committee tomorrow, and they are already properly noticed for that.
Sorry, Chair, I will ask my question.
Sure.
Now connected them. So we should be looking at which will the committee work from tomorrow on 123 and 113?
Spoiler alert, there's two drafts for 1, 2, 3, draft 2 and 3 that the committee will consider tomorrow.
Choose between.
That's for Rule 123.
Okay.
Ben, do you want to clarify? He's been working on this longer than I have. Can I, Chair?
Thank you, Ben. Yes, please. Thanks, Ben.
Ben Rasmussen, Director of Law and Professional Practices. Member Hymas is correct. There are two drafts for R277-123 that are being proposed for the committee's consideration because there was some question as to what the direction the committee wanted to take. So that's draft 2 and 3. I believe the draft 113, draft 3 is the draft that the committee will be discussing tomorrow
Okay.
on
And
113.
just a further clarification, if that's okay.
Sure.
So the committee won't start working from either draft 2 or 3. We'll just consider them together.
Correct.
All right. Thank
It
you.
would be up to a member to make whatever motion to
Gotcha.
choose the draft.
Thank you for that. I know it's just
Okay.
for the Law and Licensing Committee. That's helpful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Seeing no other lights, or do we have lights? I think some of these are procedural questions about committee process tomorrow. It sounds like things are teed up and in backup, and I'm sure Chair Hymas, Vice Chair Carey can provide additional answers there. But the question for us is whether to defer discussion on 113 from this body for law and licensing to tackle it tomorrow. Seeing no further lights, let's vote. Motion is that the board defer action and refer the rule back to committee, which will be addressed tomorrow.
Yes, no.
Oh, do we have a hand up online?
We have a person online.
She is online. Okay, let's acknowledge that for the record. Member Klein, we understand you joined us online, so we do have a full body. And I don't see a hand up, though. So let's vote if we can.
Board Member Klein is a yes.
Thank you, Member Klein. Okay, we're just looking for one. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Back to you, Chair Hymas.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3.4, Weber School District Westfield High School waiver request. The committee recommends that the board approve Weber School District Westfield High School's request for a waiver from R277-4194 for the 2024-25 school year.
Board members, questions, comments? Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to recognize that Superintendent Butters is here in attendance, and I don't know if she wants to speak to this motion or not, or if that would be appropriate, but it is her district, and I'd like to afford her that opportunity if our rules permit that.
We don't usually do public comment in the middle of a discussion. It's usually arranged for public comment prior, and so that would take a change. But if you're familiar with her situation, at least tell me if I'm wrong, parliamentarians. I always want maximum input, but I think we've set that up typically for
Just ask
public
the
comment at the
question.
start. But we can defer to Member Carey, though, to kind of channel that.
During your discussion, you could ask her a question if it needed to be, right? But it's you lead the discussion.
Yeah, questions. Okay, good. I'll make sure I'm on the right track.
I'm not even sure Superintendent Butters wants to talk, so I'm just volunteering her, so I think we're fine. If there's a question, she can be called up.
Yeah, let's
but
do that. Thank you.
Thank you,
The
Chair.
good reminder, the questions. Thank you, Superintendent Butters, for being with us. Appreciate your work, and we do want to make sure we're just following the right channels and bringing input. Okay, Member Chair Hymas.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just, speaking to that, Vice Chair Carey mentioned Superintendent Butters being here. We're just super grateful for the, I'm grateful, super grateful for just the work that she's put in here. I'll just take a second to say how impressed we are, or I am, with the work that has been done here and trying to be efficient as possible with the time that she has, even with this request. So very appreciative of the work that was done. Thank you.
Thank you. And second that, and going back to learning, I think you were instrumental in the Roy Cohn project a while back, and something we all learned about and some best practices out there. So thanks for your ongoing work and effort. And I don't think there's any other lights, so let us vote. Member Klein?
No.
Member Klein is a no. That passes 14-1 with Member Klein being a no vote. Thank you, and back to you, Chair Hymas.
Thank you. On to agenda item 3.5, R277-316, professional standards and training for non-licensed employees and volunteers. The committee recommends that the board continue and approve R277-316, professional standards on training for non-licensed employees and volunteers, draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, thank you. I see Member Bogus has a light. Can we?
Yes, sir, I would move to amend and
Okay.
add a number 5 on what would be a line 29 that states, parent or parent's designee present in the classroom pursuant to Utah Code 53G-7-203.
Okay, let's tee that up, see if we have a second, then we'll come back to you to discuss the motion. It's been seconded. Thank you. Yeah, let's, can you restate that? Ben's trying to drive for us here.
Right after line 28.
Member Bogus, could you just restate? Director Rasmussen's trying to get up on the screen.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Director Rasmussen. It would be parent or parent's designee present in the classroom pursuant to Utah Code 53G-7-203. Would you like a subsection?
Can you just put it in context?
I
through
guess
the-
that's for Ben, right? We're asking if it can be shown in context of the rule itself.
So it would add a subsection 5, a little Roman numeral 5, and then it would just add that to those requiring a background check.
All right, let's tee that up here.
Oh, it's right here.
You're focused here, but let me just.
would add parents or parent designee.
Can I ask a question while we're doing that? Chair, can I ask a question while we're doing that?
Let's,
Oh,
we
she
need
has
to
a
let
question.
her speak to it. We just want to make sure we have it framed up on the board. Oh, sorry. Dropped my white. I don't know if it's possible to put it in context, if that's a tricky cut and paste job, but I think that was the request from somebody. That give us enough to,
Yeah. Because that's not sitting, it's sitting up at the top.
that capture the language, Member Bogus?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks accurate to me.
You know, if they-
If I took my kids' Halloween candies in, like I did
I know,
last
that's-
year,
yeah.
so that's okay. I assume that would be covered though, I think, right? Any presence in the classroom?
I don't know what their legal is, but I know it there's a cost associated.
Right, but I'm saying that would apply if I went in to do, just take in whatever,
Why
I
would we
assume
leave
that
it?
would trigger the.
Back down track for a parent.
Okay. Let's see here. I think we've probably got it framed up. Are you still trying to put it in context? And if so, we can hold, or we can go ahead and, what's that?
The context.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
question was whether we can see it with the rule, in the context of the rule, and that's kind of I think that's a PDF cut and paste job that we're probably trying to figure out. So if it's possible to put that language on the Word doc that's got the new language, yeah. Yes, ma'am. I think we've about got a cut and paste job complete here. Let's see.
Perhaps it would be helpful to add subsection C2 to the code line for better clarity.
C2.
What does the code say?
Is that a reference to 402?
When you talk to it, would you mind reading the code too? Board Member Klein is wondering what it actually says, so.
Could you say that code section you just said again? 53G dash.
53G-7-203, subsection C2, section 6, subsection C.
6C. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're kind of informally chatting here. I'm going to turn it back to Member Bogus to address the motion. We're all just sort of orienting ourselves. But what was your request, Member Green? Mr. Member.
Oh, maybe I have it on the wrong line.
Oh, gotcha. All right, let's get this formal, and we'll kick it back to Member Bogus. I think we've
Maybe
got
I
up on
put
the
it in
screen the context to which this would be added, but along with reference to code.
So maybe I put it on.
And Member Bogus, I think, was suggesting at the end of 203 down there, and the language would be 203 sub 6C.
C2.
C2.
Also, this
6C. Roman 2. Little Roman 2.
so this.
Okay, I think we've
So
got
that
it
would be
up. Back to you, Member
background
Bogus.
check
It's
if
been
there's
moved and
child.
seconded.
They needed
I
to
want to
do
address the
background
motion.
check.
Yes, sir. So as I look at it up there, I might have made the motion for the wrong location, but I'll discuss this first and then perhaps move to amend my own motion. Regardless, if we have individuals in our schools for the purposes of taking children to the restroom, they need to be background checked. It doesn't matter who they are. If they're going to be present in our facilities, in public restrooms, for the purposes of potty training, they need to be background checked. So those are my thoughts. And as I look at the C heading, I think I made my motion for the wrong location. Regardless, that would be my assertion and rationale for adding this to this rule.
If it's just kind of a technical clarification, was there another spot that you intended this motion to go?
Let me look real fast. I've got it marked here.
That might streamline it. It's before the body, but I don't know that we're precluded from getting it in the place that you intended to put it before we debate it. Let me just see if we get this pinned down and know what we're gonna discuss.
Because that's not where I want it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
Get there.
Question. Do
I
we always
think that
know
that is
when someone-
I-
I mean,
better, yes, sir. But I don't think, I'm so sorry, Ben. I did not want it in the header, and I'm not even seeing my own notes in Civic Clerk. And so it's clearly not where I wanted it, and I apologize for that. But wherever you would seem to see that it fits, that would be fine with me. That's my motion before the board if we can find a spot for it right now.
If I may, I think you could put it in the
Please.
same place and just call it subsection D instead of subsection Roman numeral 5, so it would be an additional requirement right by the other background check requirement, if that's what you're trying to do.
Yes, sir.
So it would be, okay.
Then
I have a question.
C5. We'll get there, Member Klein, unless it's just kind of technical. We haven't started debate yet, but is this question on just sort of order of where this is going?
No, that's okay. I can wait.
Okay, we'll get you. Let's see. So A through C references 402, which does not include this new language. So a separate D would clarify that this is a new requirement that's not, right?
Director Rasmussen suggested that the motion state that this language be added as a D. Did I articulate that correctly, sir?
Yes, so the language in italics that I put up there would be subsection D. And I'm sorry I closed my doc for a second, so I'm trying to pull that back up so I can edit it. But it would be the same line, line 29, and just make it subsection D after subsection C.
We're all in the same boat. What I was saying is that would clarify that this is not something listed in 402, which 1 through 4 are, and therefore it's a separate D, right? Okay. All right, I think we got it framed up. Can we turn back to the maker to address the motion? Back to you, Member Bogus.
So, sir, I would yield to my previous comments that if we have individuals in our schools for the purposes of entering our public restrooms and helping students take care of their business, regardless of whether or not they're a parent or a parent's designee, they need to be pursuant to they need to have a background check. There's great risk in having adults enter the restrooms of our students, and we need to do our due diligence to ensure that our students are safe.
Okay, thank you, Member Bogus. Let's open the floor. I see Member Lear. I think Member Vice Chair Hart had a hoot. We have Member Lear first.
Lear, Hymas, Hart.
And Member Klein. Let's, I don't know who was first. Do we know? Lear, then Klein. Okay.
So I didn't process the just minute ago change. So now it is, shall require background check for debt pursuant to 7203.
I'm sorry.
Would you like to clarify, Member Bogus?
There's some language that's missing from the new motion in shall require a background check for a parent's or parent's designee present in the classroom pursuant to, and maybe pursuant to is not language that we want to state right there, but that they're there for the purposes of taking kids to the restroom.
Okay, so that would clarify it. Let me just add one piece of kind of process clarity. Section 402 already requires LEA to conduct background checks for those items listed, non-licensed employees, contract employees, volunteers, and charter school governing board members. It does not include what is being proposed to be added. Member Bogus is referencing that her added language is when the parent would be in the classroom for the purposes outlined in 2036C, which are taking children to the bathroom. So it'd be limited to that. In other words, I was just raising the question. I went into my kid's classroom to take some Halloween goodies and help them unload their whatever stuff. I wasn't going to the restroom, but I was in the classroom. It would not apply then, at least as I understand. Okay. That's when your language would apply. Okay. Further discussion, Member Klein.
I think my question has been answered, but I would ask that we add that specific language into the motion instead of just saying pursue, like be explicit on what that.
So that
What
would be
it
an
says?
appropriate amendment if you wanted to propose language. It would be at least in order. Don't know if it would be accepted, but that would be in order. Is that a proposed
I
amendment,
would be
Member
happy.
Klein?
Yes. We can just add that language to reflect what is in the code
So the
that she's
proposed,
referring.
okay, proposed, do you have specific language or are you asking?
Can I
I didn't have the code right up in front of me, but for the
Okay. Okay, so the motion, and if we have, hold on, let me just get this in order. Member Klein's framing up an amendment to the amendment, which I understand to be adding to Member Bogus's language, a specific reference that when the parent is present in the classroom for purposes of
or the
taking a child to the restroom? Member
Yes.
Klein is, okay, for the purpose of taking a child to the restroom pursuant to subsection blah, blah, blah. That would be down, if we could add it to the language. Oh, hold on, let me frame it up here. We'll get some good, unless it's a point of order?
Mine's a point of order.
I think that the code she's referring to is about toilet training. Because I don't want to make a parent who comes for the Halloween parade and takes their kid to the bathroom to have to get a background check.
We can address that. Let's just get it up, see if we have a
It's just the
second.
language in the motion needs to be toilet training, not taking someone to the bathroom.
Okay, so that is addressed to Member Klein. As we're framing up your language, are you able to see this on what we're doing on the
I
screen here?
can, what they're putting on, yep.
Okay, so we now have language that says, for the purpose of aiding in toilet training. Does that reflect your proposed amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so that's an amendment to Member Bogus's amendment. Is there a second? Member Davis seconded. Member Klein, any discussion of the motion? We got Vice Chair Earl and I think one or two others ready to address it.
I have a point of order.
Oh, point of order, sorry.
My point of order is last month we actually moved to ask for this whole section to be repealed.
I was going to mention that
C6C,
too.
which is, I mean, we can add this, but then I guess I'm asking the question out loud, right? I'm just trying to figure out what the relationship then is, so.
Member Bogus, would you like, that is a point of order to remind board members, there was a proposal that was approved by the board and presented to ad interim, and I think it's now in a committee bill. I understand that all of our proposals went into a committee bill except for SOEP, which was already being addressed separately. So, Member Bogus, any response to that as a point of order, clarity? There we go, perfect, Van. Oh, let's get you a light. There you go.
Thank you, Chair. My response would be, yeah, we did pass that, and I do hope that the legislature sees that through to the finish line. However, it takes almost nothing of the board's time to strike this because of a code change, but we're waiting 3 months with great risk if they do not pass that code change. And so I would love to see us pass this and send that message that we take this very seriously, and this is not something that we want to let slide.
Okay. Further discussion, Member Lear?
That was my own doing. I got tied up in my words and never got to make my point that I was aiming toward. And I just want to remind all of us that we're putting this burden on LEAs, that this is something the LEA has to do. It's not like the individual parent has now a responsibility to have this background check. And I'm not willing to put that burden on LEAs, given the language that I feel is adequately protective in significant unsupervised access to students.
Okay, further comments or questions? Did I miss either of you with your lights? Member Hymas.
Thank you. I have some concern here just because I have regularly had to call parents in the moment and say, hey, your child needs help. And they have to come in, and I really don't have time for a background check. Right? And they're coming in to help their child, to clean up their child. That would fall under this process of toilet training. I get what Member Bogus is saying. If I have a kindergartner who's not toilet trained and they're coming into the school and I have to work something out with parents, then yeah, I could see where we might need to take an additional step. But there's too many instances in the moment, and I deal with this almost I want to say almost daily, but it depends on the student, where too many times I have to call a parent and say, hey, your child had an accident or your child needs help. Can you come in and help out? Because of this very things that Member Bogus brings up here is that we don't want just anybody in our restrooms, and we don't want just anybody with our students. So I'm leaning towards the not supporting this because I don't think we're there yet, but I do understand what the concern is.
I guess I do have a
Thank you,
comment.
Vice Chair Earl.
And maybe someone can help me understand both the law and maybe the intent here, but it's actually the parent of the child or someone that the parent has designated. It's not, right? So we're actually talking about, and they're actually helping their child. So is that accurate? Okay.
Vice Chair Hart.
So, I look at this, and to me, a parent who is coming in and going into a classroom is a volunteer. And that is, I know, the stated policy in which the district that I worked and the district that I work currently, that if a parent is coming to assist their child, they are a volunteer and they are already covered under this. So I do feel like that's part of an LEA's, we make this rule, but then LEAs work out the details and how they define those volunteers. I just feel like it needs to be part of the LEA process because there's other things related to this. The cost of getting it done, how it gets done, the procedures. And so if we do this, it's almost like we're half doing it, whereas we've already got it covered under volunteers, and then we allowed the LEAs to make specific rules around that and communicate that. So to me, it's unnecessary because anybody who goes into a classroom like that is a volunteer and already covered. So thanks.
Thank you. Back to Member Bogus. Am I missing anybody? Back to you, I believe. Or Member Booth? No, I'm sorry. Sometimes I get the lights off. Bogus and Davis.
So I have no objection to this motion. I do have the primary motion I would like to speak to, but if you would like to pass the amendment first, sir, I don't. I'm happy to speak at either time.
Okay, we have Member Davis in line. Is that for the Member Klein's amendment?
Yeah, it's both. I mean, I think the clarification in Member Klein's amendment is important. And then just kind of segueing that to the main motion, my understanding is I can understand where Member Hymas is saying this would be problematic. My understanding is this would not be for a sporadic accident that happens here or there. This is for someone who says, my child is not toilet trained and I want to be exempt from that code that says they have to be toilet trained, and I'm coming every day. And I'm going to be there consistently in your bathrooms and in your halls and in your places because I'm going to be with my child till they're toilet trained because I want exempt from the law. So that consistency is what I think would warrant a background check, not the incidental that Member Hymas is indicating. And I don't know how to do that in the language, but that's my understanding. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment, question? This is for Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just speaking to the motion, as I'm thinking, we have these processes and procedures for teachers and volunteers, but so you run a background check on parents, and that comes back with shoplifting or some positive mark. How does the school make the determination that that particular incident now disqualifies them from taking care of their child in a public school bathroom? Now, obviously, if it's something, related to misconduct or predatory in nature with children, that's an easy call. But what about that feedback that's going to come back? And now we're putting the school in the position of telling parents, yeah, well, your background check came back positive, and out of an abundance of caution, you now lose the right to accommodate your child, or now you have to be watched with your child as you take the child to the bathroom. That would be my concern with this, in addition to those already expressed.
Thank you, Member Carey. Other lights to Member Klein's proposed amendment to the amendment. Seeing none?
I would just
Oh, Member
I
Klein,
would
yes.
just add, I would just add that the concerns expressed by Board Member Carey, I share as well, and that was my first concern about this. I do think it needs clarifying language if we're going to pass this, but to say a parent needs a background check to take their own child to the bathroom is problematic in my mind. The only reason I would consider doing that is because the rationale that they would be in the bathroom with other people's children potentially, and not just their own. And if that's where the concern is, then I can understand that. But, if there's a way to, kind of parse that out, that would be great. I just don't know how to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any final discussion to Member Klein's proposed amendment? If not, let's vote. The motion is as framed on the board to add the orange language to the underlying proposed amendment by Member Bogus, so that it would say an LAA policy shall require a background check for a parent or parent's designee present in the classroom. Language of Member Klein's amendment for the purpose of aiding in toilet training. Back to Member Bogus's underlying amendment pursuant to Section 53G 72036C. Okay, members, please vote. Oh, sorry, just the
Board member-
amendment. Yep,
yeah.
we're just adding question of whether to add the orange language. Two more. Oh, Member Klein, I'm sorry. Your vote?
I said yes.
Member Klein is a yes. And that passes 10-5. The no votes being Chair Moss, Member Hymas, Member Reel, Member Lear, and Member Carey. Thank you. So we're back to the underlying motion from Member Bogus, the motion to amend, which would now include the orange language from Member Klein's motion, that an LAA policy shall require a background check for a parent or parent's designee present in the classroom for the purpose of aiding in toilet training pursuant to subsection 53G 72036C. Any further discussion to that underlying motion? Back to you, Member Bogus and Member Green.
Thank you, sir. So I actually, I too share Member Carey's concerns. What is the threshold for denial? But I think this policy issue right here is a very poignant example of not thinking things through to their logical end. And when the legislature passed that code, they did not think it through on the front line, because the application on the front line puts adults in restrooms with our children in a public setting. And that presents great risk to our students, and it presents great risk to our system, because an allegation even without merit, is still an allegation. And we have to be in a place where we have done our due diligence to ensure that our students are protected. And I would offer that I would ditto the comments of Member Davis in that this is not your child had an accident. This is they are present in the classroom for the purposes of toilet training. And, if it were just a parent, I might think differently. I don't know that I would, but I might. But a parent's designee, Aunt Joe, our neighbor John, what does that even mean, a parent's designee? And we're in a place where there's great risk to our system, and there's adults in children's restrooms aiding with toilet training, and we need to mitigate the risk, and I would offer that this does that, sir.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hart?
So I share all those concerns, absolutely. And this is where I run into issues personally. I would never allow just Uncle Joe to go into a multi-stall bathroom. If this happened in my school or in my district, I was advised and expected to provide the bathroom in the sick room or the one-stall bathroom. You don't have adults changing kids' clothes and cleaning them up in the bathrooms that the students go to. So I just, that doesn't even occur to me as a possibility as an educator. However, on the other hand, I understand that we do need to mitigate that risk. But at what point do we leave it to the LEAs to create policies, extensions of our policies and implementation of our policies and laws in ways that make sense to them? I mean, at what level do we stop and leave it to the LEA? I don't think anybody wants Uncle Joe in bathrooms or neighbor Joe or whatever. Sorry, Joe. Yeah, no. Squidward, Uncle Squidward in the bathroom with students. And I just that wouldn't even ever occur to me. Hey, the bathroom's right there. No, the bathroom is the adult bathroom and it's right here and you're taking your child in, or the sick room is right here and it has other facilities so that you can clean up your child. So it's not that I don't think there's a risk. It's that I don't think that laws need to be, or policies need to be so spelled out that we've covered every single contingency. So that it's just a balancing act for me. It's not that I don't think there's a risk. I think it's just better handled at the LEA level.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hart? Yes? Member Davis?
Amendment.
Okay, that would be in order.
Yeah, I share a similar understanding because parents by law can be in the classroom. They have a need-to-know basis and whatnot. So I would move to strike parent and just put the parent's designee. And again, if the law now allows for someone not hired by the school to come in because they're asking for a waiver from the toilet training requirement, that person probably should be background checked if they're going to be hanging out in there all the time. But I really understand this parent conundrum also with requiring that, because they do have a right to be in that classroom legally.
Thank you, Member Davis. Is that, I don't know if is that proposed as a friendly? Member Bogus?
I would second Member Davis's motion with the understanding that I would love to, without objection, add the word or.
Member Davis? Strike parent or, so it would just say.
Oh, yeah. That's just technical, right?
Okay.
such thing as a technical change.
Well, it's just, it's, clarifying
fine.
the initial intent. Let's, all right, so it's been proposed. If there's any objection, is the underlying proposal, I guess we need to vote on the underlying. That's not being proposed as a friendly, correct? Yes, Member Bogus seconded it, not as a friendly though. It needs a vote, correct? Okay. Well, hers was friendly, but your own addition to hers, I don't think was proposed as a friendly, so it does need a vote.
I will not object to the motion, if that's the question.
Okay.
Maybe another board member would, but I would not object to your motion.
So she's suggesting your own motion is a friendly. So if there's no objection, the body could accept that. But if there's an objection, we can open up for debate and vote. Any objection to accepting Member Davis's amendment, which drops parent or and simply refers to parent designee? Hearing no objection, we can take that as a friendly with the additional clarification of the word or. So, everybody understand? You don't have to object because you hate it. You can object just because you want to debate it, whatever, but I'm not hearing an objection. So, okay, Member Straight.
Question, is this only in relationship to the law as far as the toilet training?
Member Bogus, I believe that's it's intended to specifically tie it to that section. So to the extent, well, it says currently as required, then this applies.
So follow up,
Yes.
almost all elementaries have some type of back to school night or something associated with many holidays. This would not apply to like a Halloween carnival, to where you have hundreds of people in the school all using the same restrooms, designated male and female, of course, but it would not apply to that.
My understanding is no, and I'll just refer to the language. Member Bogus, correct me if I'm off here because it's your motion, but the code that's being referenced, which is section 203, says in section 6, which is referenced by the proposed amendment, that a state board shall make rules to create a process for an LEA to follow process when an enrolled student is found not to be toilet trained, including allowing a parent or a parent's adult designee to aid in toilet training as needed. So my understanding is this would apply only to that, that process. If somebody's under that process coming on the school property and in a classroom for the purpose of aiding in toilet training, then this would apply to a parent's designee. Correct? Am I misstating anything? I'm just referring back to the...
So I do believe that your assertion and reframing of that is correct, and I think that the motion as it stands right now is very clear for those that explicit language is in there. I think it's well written. I think it cites the code lines that we're addressing, and I would just ask that we support the motion.
Okay,
Okay,
Member Straight?
so when a principal needs to address a situation of toilet training, contact the parents then come in and they set up a who can and who can assist in that toilet training, and that can be the parent or the designee, and whoever is either of those situations, those are the individuals that have to be background checked.
Well, not the parent. The Member Davis's amendment takes out parent and just references a parent's designee.
So it
Tell me
could be
again
the
if I'm-
parent, but it isn't specifically the parent. So the parent is never given a background check. Could
they're-
could that parent be a sex offender? But to the point of Vice Chair Hart, specifically, I'm trying to. They are allowed only in a single-use restroom, an adult restroom, to deal with this situation. Is that correct?
Not sure about that. I see a shaking of Director Rasmussen's head. So I don't think the process authorized by Section 203 to allow a parent or designee to assist in toilet training requires that they do that in an adult restroom. It does not, right? So, okay, so yes.
Could we, and now this is kind of the question, it's not a question. Is perhaps an easier way to deal with this that in the case of toilet training, only single-use bathrooms can be used?
So that question for Director Rasmussen, perhaps, and I guess there's two elements to that. Is that a code, a rule question, a policy question?
Four total.
Maybe we amend it to narrow that scope.
We'll work on the other ones, but I don't want to slow your meeting down.
Am I on?
Ben has a mic, he can talk, you know?
Anyhow, I just.
This is a blast. I'll work on them though. Got one right there. So then you could, you know what, I'm not sure. It looks like the voting stuff's working. Give it a shot. If not, you might need a voice.
Or you could, LEAs without a thing must apply.
So, Chair, if I may.
Okay, yes, please, Director Rasmussen.
So the question was whether we could put something in the rule that would direct that only specific bathrooms could be used for this. I think we're getting a little bit beyond the purpose of this rule and that. Is this not working?
I just can't hear you.
Okay, so I think that if the board wanted to get into that area of designating what bathrooms could be used for this, it would need to be done in the rule that we have on toilet training. I will note that there are amendments in the works to that rule that will be coming up, I think, in committee in December, and so maybe that's something that that the board could consider when that rule comes up, but I think this is probably not the rule to do that in.
All right, thank you. For our public, we switched mic systems, so sorry for the delay for a minute there. And I guess for our getting in line, we have to, I see Member Davis's physical hand. Is that what we're needing to do?
Yes.
We need physical hands up then?
Yeah.
To get in line to speak? Okay. So, Member Green, or did you have a hand up for that or no? You had a question for? Are you saying Emily has a question or you have a question? Sorry. You both do. Go for it.
Just,
Okay,
oh,
Member
just to
Davis.
clarify, what you're saying is that to be able to add this little bit of understanding to the code, the new code that allows parents or parent designees to go in and toilet train kids, that adjusted Representative Welton's code that said you can't send your kid unless they're toilet trained. You're saying we have to do it in a different rule. You're saying this is not, that's what you're saying. And we got to do it next month. Am I understanding that right?
The rule that the board is considering deals with how LEAs handle all their non-licensed employees and volunteers. So that we have a specific rule on the toilet training procedures. And if the board were inclined to make additional rules regarding that, I think that's the rule you'd want to do that in.
There's not confusion about the toilet training.
I think, Chair,
Yes.
for clarity, I think that you made that reference in, to designated or making rule around using specific restrooms, not requiring background checks. Did I articulate that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, Member Green.
This one takes us back just a couple minutes in our discussion here, but since we have Rasmussen here, and this was to board members straight, if we put this in, the question was raised, how does that work if something were to surface that there is a background, like how would they deal with that? And so I just wanted to confirm down on line 34, or section 2, I should say, requires LEAs to have appropriate policies in place to ensure that individuals are appropriately background checked, and LEAs have procedures for reviewing criminal charges as appropriate. So is that where that would apply? That if
Yeah.
something were to come up for the parent designee, that the LEA should, in theory, have procedures for reviewing those criminal charges. So is that built in then, that concern that was raised, that's been addressed?
Yeah, each LEA should have policies as to how they deal with things that pop up on background checks, and so this would be similar to that. If a parent's designee had a DUI or something on their background check, the LEA's policy would dictate what they do with that information.
Yeah, and from that, then it raises a question, if the parents say that that parent designee didn't realize that maybe there were things there, that makes a difficult conversation then, so
Yes.
complicated. Okay.
I move to postpone, and hopefully it's friendly until next month, and this can go in the toilet training rule, so it's not confused with the Halloween parades and such. What? This can go in the toilet.
Point of clarification.
Toilet training.
You're talking the motion or the rule?
The motion can be postponed to next month. If we put it specifically in the toilet training rule, it will cut down all of this confusion about these random parent visits to classrooms.
And am I understanding that rule is already up for December?
There is a plan to bring the toilet training rule in December to committee, yes.
To committee, correct? Okay, so I assume this would be postponing and referring to committee for consideration with the toilet training rule? Or no, it's your
The
motion,
rule is
Member
up for
Davis.
its 5-year review, and the board needs to take action on the rule.
The toilet training rule or?
The rule before the board today.
Okay.
Which is 316, the non-licensed employee standards for non-licensed
Do we
employees.
need to
et
do
cetera.
that today then? Or can
Yes.
that be?
No,
But the issue, I mean, it would certainly be appropriate to direct staff to address this issue of background checks in the toilet training rule as opposed to this rule. And I think there may be some logic to doing that might be a better fit for this piece too.
So the 5-year point has to be addressed today.
Rule needs
or
to be
it
addressed today.
lapses.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion, Member Davis, I guess this is your motion. I understand the motion to be to refer this motion to be considered in connection with the toilet training rule, starting with committee in December. So it would allow this motion, this rule, underlying rule to pass. I'm just making sure I understand with his clarification. That would allow this rule to stay on the table for passage, but defer everything that's been discussed to consideration with the toilet training rule beginning committee in December. Okay, I'm seeing. Got a second? Member Bogus?
I would just move to amend it.
Amend the motion
motion.
to refer, or defer? I guess it's defer and refer. Yes, go ahead.
That the motion itself is included in the draft that comes before committee.
That a friendly? I think the motion itself was to refer Member Bogus's motion, and so I think that would probably just be saying, okay, attach everything to that. Is that, Member Davis?
It's friendly, but because, well, I think that it still is considered a draft.
Yes.
Even when it comes
Correct.
back as part of it, it'll be part of one of the drafts that
Right.
people will consider.
Do we know whether that committee is law and licensing, Director Rasmussen, anybody else? All right,
Did we
so,
ever vote on,
Member Klein, is that? Yes, Member,
point of order, did we ever vote on my motion? I feel like we're too many motions out.
that was accepted with the, yes. That language was added to Member Bogus's underlying motion. The motion now is to defer that motion as framed in draft form to the committee that will address the toilet training rule in December. So all of the work that's been framed up will transfer as a draft, not as an approved motion, but it will be taken in draft form to back up in committee in December. Seeing no further lights, please vote. I think it works. My understanding is that part works. So Member Klein, your vote?
Yes.
Member Klein is a yes. This is to Member Davis's motion. Mine's not, but, oh, now it is. No worries, thank you. Thanks for making it work. I didn't know we still had that.
Voting.
Okay, that passes 14-1. No vote from Member Lear. That will be then addressed in committee, which will be discussed, the assignment of a committee will be discussed in next executive committee session. Back to you, Member Chair Hymas.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Member Klein?
Are we still on?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on
316?
here. Hold on. I messed up. Yes, we are still on 116. I apologize. We still need, we have on the table the approval to continue the rule. So without amendments, sorry again? To continue and approve draft one, which did not incorporate any of the proposed amendments. Those were taken and put in back up for consideration by the committee, but thank you. We still have to approve continuation of the underlying rule. Any additional?
I do have some questions.
Yes.
Okay, so lines 8 through 14, look, they're being stricken. Does that mean that the superintendent will no longer be required to perform duties assigned to her by the board? Or no longer required to report annually to the governor or the legislature?
Someone able to address that? We're looking at the rule lines 8 through 14. This is language that was not addressed in the motions brought to the body, but it's in the underlying document.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
Director Rasmussen.
if I may, the language on lines 8 through 14 were taken out because while they were listed as authority for the rule, they didn't really have anything to do with the rule. And so the recommendation was to delete those because they don't have anything to do with the LEA policies for non-licensed personnel.
So is that in another rule, that requirement for her to report
in
and also
code.
to perform by the board?
It's in code.
Okay,
It's still in code.
not in the. Okay. Another question. Can you explain why line 182 is being stricken?
Can you scroll down to that, Kelsey?
Sorry, what was the line number again? 182.
182?
Can you, sorry, can you hand me my computer?
So the language Member Klein is addressing says a public education employer shall cooperate with the superintendent in investigations of licensed educators, lines 182 and 183.
Yes, okay, so the recommendation to strike line 182 is because this rule deals with non-licensed employees. We have these requirements in the UPAC rules, specifically R277217, so I don't think we need that language in this particular rule.
Okay. On 119, just referring to 119, are licensed teachers also immediately suspended during an investigation of alleged offenses?
Director Rasmussen.
Or is this non-licensed people that are immediately suspended
This
during
rule
an
is,
investigation?
this rule applies to non-licensed employees, although that's usually the practice for licensed employees as well.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you. And then last question. I'm wondering about a requirement, what lines, line 16 through 18. It lists the requirements or the professional standards for non-licensed employees and volunteers. I don't see anything on there about employees or non-licensed employees or volunteers having to prove their citizenship. Do we have non-citizens teaching, working, volunteering in our schools, working as administrators, or are they allowed in as public-private partners in the school or outside the school for school-related programs? How does that work?
And we
This sounds
haven't,
like an offline
And-
question, possibly.
Well, let's get the answer. Question about citizens. Go ahead.
it's hard to answer that. I'm sure there would be non-citizens in different capacities. For example, dual immersion teachers, I think we have a number of non-citizens that are here through that program. But it would be up to the LEA whether they want to allow non-citizens to perform those different functions in their classrooms.
So there's nothing in state law about the government hiring and paying non-citizens with taxpayer funds?
You can't broadly call.
I believe that's correct.
There's
Hold
different
on.
citizenship.
All right.
This is just unnecessary and not relevant to the motion.
Questions about citizens, we can get a quick answer, and if there's further, discussion, it could go offline. I don't think there's anything that allows or requires to distinguish based on citizenship, but go ahead. Ben.
I'm not aware of any restriction on non-citizens doing volunteer work or working as non-licensed employees.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
one
you,
more
Member Klein.
question.
One more, okay.
Is there a requirement for licensed employees to be citizens?
Well, there are specific programs for international guest teachers who would not be citizens. Is there, Malia, Dr. Height?
Beyond that, is there a requirement?
Malia Hyde, Executive Coordinator of Educator Licensing. There is a requirement in code for anybody seeking an educator license to have a social security number issued by the Social Security Office of the United States.
And just to clarify, this is non-licensed employees and volunteers, right? So we're not dealing with licensing on this particular rule. Does that answer the question? Again, further explanation can go offline. I think we've got an answer.
I guess
Ben?
my only
Okay.
question to Mia would be, does a social security number infer citizenship?
I think we've addressed that in other contexts. I'm not sure it applies here. Is there a quick answer, yes or no? Do we know? Okay. The answer is we're not sure. Further questions? Member Bogus? I see your light.
Yes, sir. I would just offer that I have yet to see an application for a licensed or unlicensed person in our public school system that does not have the caveat that you have to be legally eligible to work in the United States, and you have to provide forms of identification to that end. And so I think that the questions do exist, there are protocols put in place, and I've not seen our LEAs violate those protocols explicitly or overtly. So I hope that helps with some clarity.
Thank you. And yet there are other ways of being eligible without full citizenship, right? So that's part of a deeper conversation. I think we've got answers, and the motion before the body then is to approve R277-316, again, without amendment of any of the material we discussed today. So seeing no further lights, please vote.
Board Member Klein is a no.
Thank you. There we go. And that passes 14-1. No vote from Member Klein. Thank you very much. And back to Member Chair Hymas.
Thank you, Chair Moss. Again, I apologize. There are other agenda items, but there are no motion for the board, and that concludes our law and licensing report.
Don't apologize for that.